in Canada, currently, there is a very big crackdown against immigrants, be it legal or illegal. And the news is that Canada is turning away more foreigners than before, even more than what they used to do before 2019 or before the pandemic. And this is basically because, one, we know that Canada is edging closer to an election year, and the political establishment wants to portray themselves as being pro-Canadians. And one way of doing that is restricting immigration. So I was reading the news today, and I was seeing that Canada has returned very many immigrants at the port of entry, and sometimes they call it, using a good word, turning away, or politely asking you to turn away. But sometimes you find that this is basically deportation. They're just saying it's turning you away, or something, a good name, to give it some humane kind of treatment. But basically, this is what we call deportation. So I was reading the news today and wondering, how is it going to be from now up until we are done with the elections in Canada? Because it seems there is an anti-migrant kind of sentiment from political class, the citizens of that country, and also the border officers, because the border officers are the ones who are responsible for admitting people who are coming to Canada. So this policy, this problem, has affected both students, workers, and other people immigrating to Canada or going to Canada for other reasons. Tourists, they are being turned at the airport. So you'd imagine someone going all the way from their home country, all the way to Canada, traversing all these countries, airports, and you are denied entry at the port of entry. That at the airport, they tell you to go back, because they tend to also grill you further and further and further. So, so many people have suffered very huge losses as a result of this policy, because you've spent so much money traveling all the way to Canada. The preparations, maybe you've paid an agent to do this visa application for you, to do the documentation, and you've booked a flight, you've left your job, you've left your family, and you are turned at the airport. That is quite sad, because the numbers which I'm seeing in thousands, and the news, I made another video about the same, and these numbers are in thousands, not hundreds, thousands. And I'm going to read the news as we discuss this. There is an article from Reuters, border crackdown, Canada turning away more foreigners. An article which was written on September 4th. Today, at the time of recording this video, is September 9th. So it says, Canada is closing its doors to more visitors and temporary residents by approving fewer visas and turning away more people who reach its borders with official documents. Underline the word official documents, according to government data obtained by Reuters. So what this means is that you go through the whole process of applying for a visa. Maybe you've waited for this visa for 1 year, 2 years. Then this visa is approved. You are being told that you've gotten a visa to Canada. Then at the port of entry, you are returned. You imagine how painful that is. The spike in rejections of foreign travelers comes as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Liberal government, trailing it in polls ahead of an election expected next year, tries to lower the numbers of temporary residents. So you see, all these things is tied to the elections, and that is why the Prime Minister, because he's looking for re-election, is trying to cut on immigration, be it legal or illegal. Let's continue. Migrants have been blamed for the shortage and high prices of housing. The Canadian housing market has been suffering a big problem because of the numbers of immigrants who are getting into its borders. It's very hard getting housing in some provinces in Canada. And someone I was talking to the other day, they were telling me you can be put on the wait list for months on end, for months. It can even take you 12 months before you get to the viewing of the house. Not residing in the house, getting to view the house, because there is a wait list of very many people waiting to view the house, so that they can see whether they are going to pay and and live in that house. So you'd imagine the challenge, and that has been brought about by the biggest number of mostly students and temporary visitors coming to Canada for other reasons. Let's continue. Canadians have prided themselves on embracing newcomers, but polls show a growing number say Canada is admitting too many immigrants. That is the sentiment from different quarters, including citizens, the permanent residents of those countries. That stance is filtering down to border immigration officers, to border and immigration officers. So what that means is that the border officers have the same sentiment as politicians, because they are being there's always what we call a silent policy, which is pushed down to the lower levels, from the political establishment all the way to the border officers or the people working on the ground. They are told limit the number of people getting inside the country, and they cannot officially confirm this, as you will later see in the last part of this communication. In July, let's continue. In July, Canada refused entry to 5,853 foreign travelers who were allowed to leave, in quotes, allowed to leave, as Canada puts it, and who include students. So, border officers turned away 3,727 foreign travelers per month on average through the first 7 months of 2024. So, according to the data, that is an average for the early months of 2024. On average, they are turning away 3,727 foreign travelers per month on average. So you'd imagine how many people those are from different countries trying to get to Canada. You've gotten your visa, you've gotten everything properly, you've bought a ticket, and you're being returned at the port of entry. You'd imagine how painful that is. Let's continue. Separately, officers deemed 285 visa holders inadmissible in July. So in July 2024, people had already gotten their visas, maybe visit visas, tourist visas, student visas. 285 were deemed inadmissible in July only. So the months of August, September, we've not gotten the data, and I believe it's almost the same number of visa holders being returned. Those are not illegal immigrants. Those are people who have gone through the pain of getting this visa, paid the money for the interview, for the biometrics, paid money for medicals if it's needed, paid money for the flight, and they are being returned at the airport. Get that right, let that sink in. A Canada Border Services Agency, CBSA, spokesman said changes in findings of inadmissibility can be caused by migration patterns or policy changes and are decided case by case. I'll not easily buy that because this is not a case-by-case kind of a scenario whereby if your case seems to be inadmissible, you are returned. This is a policy from the higher levels of the political establishment, and the border officer, the spokesman, will not plainly, is not stupid enough, is not a stupid person to tell you that those are orders from above. But I feel and I understand with my mind that those are orders from above, so that they should not admit many people into the country, bearing in mind the political environment. And this is not, again, let me tell you, this is not the best time for you to be able to, if you are looking to get to Canada, this is not the best time. Wait for some other time, because between 2024 and 2025, we are going to see so many people being returned at the port of entry. Let's continue. The CBSA role, policy and practice, as always, I'm quoting the spokesman, the CBSA role, policy and practice has always been to assess the admissibility of persons coming to Canada. This has not changed. Really? A lot has changed, because you cannot it's not plausible, it's not explainable that the number has spiked of the people who are being returned at the port of entry. Let's continue. At the same time, Canada's immigration department is approving fewer visas. So the number of people, out of 100 people who apply for the visa, only 2 or 3 are going to get a visit visa in the year 2024, and probably the biggest part of 2025 because of the political environment. There's nothing else. It's the political environment, and we are going to see a persistence of this in the coming years, in the coming days. Sorry, because of this political environment. Let's continue. The ratio of refused visitor visa applications to approved ones was higher in June than any point since the height of the pandemic. Let me repeat. The ratio of refused visitor visas applications to approved ones was higher in June than any point since the height of the pandemic. In January, February, May, and June 2024, more applications were refused than approved, according to Immigration Department data. So that is money. Those are not just numbers. That is money. Those are people. Those are human beings who have gone through the whole process, the painful process of getting a visa to Canada. Then they are returned at the port of entry for different reasons. You can be asked, who filled the visa for you? Did you use an agency? How much money do you have? Where are you traveling to? Have you reserved your accommodation? Are you planning to go back? Explain. Show us how much money you have. Different questions which are being asked at the port of entry. And that is causing so many people, especially people from Africa, Asia, to be denied entry into Canada. Let's continue. The number of approved study and work permits also dropped from multi-year highs in 2023 and 2022 respectively. Canadians want a system that is, I'm quoting, Canadians want a system that is not out of control, the Immigration Minister, Mark Miller, said in August. Miller's spokesman said the Immigration Department was committed to a fair and non-discriminatory application of immigration policy and procedures. Do you believe that? Tell us in the comment section whether you believe that what the minister is saying is the entire truth, because on my side, with my little brain, I know this is not true. This is something which is orders from above. And no officer will tell you these are orders from above, because they'll be risking their jobs. 8 lawyers told the Reuters that they have heard from clients of greater scrutiny of visa holders at airports and land border crossings. So these are lawyers who have handled cases of immigrants being returned at the port of entry, and they have been told about the increased level of grilling. What is the word? Scrutiny of visa holders. These are people who have visas being grilled for hours. And if you want to see this, just go to YouTube, search for returned at the airport, and you'll see so many people, especially Africans, people of color. We are suffering, and that is the reality of how things are. British Columbia lawyer Will Tao said he has represented half a dozen visa holders who border officials disbelieved about the nature of their plans in Canada and suggested, the nature of their plans in Canada and suggested that they turn back voluntarily or risk deportation. Some did so, not knowing the implications this could have for their visa or travel authorization, including potential cancellation. The person sees increased border officers' skepticism stemming from a 180-degree altitude shift on immigration from the government. The idea that foreigners are entering Canada without meeting requirements or are causing the country harm is trickling down from politicians to frontline officials. So, if you're planning to visit Canada in this year, 2024, 2023, kindly, unless it's very, very important, reschedule your travel plans to another year. Cancel your plans, because most likely with this kind of news, you are going to lose a lot of money, you're going to waste a lot of time, and you can also risk your immigration history, because if you are deported at the port of entry, you see what that does to your immigration history and your prospects as a potential immigrant for other years to another country. Most Western countries, you'll be suffering while trying to apply for visas because you are already deported from Canada. So my people, I want to hear what you think in the comment section about this whole debacle, about this whole process, or about this problem, the one which people are going through. Tell us what you think, and what you think is the solution. Because on the other side, I've seen comments from people in Canada saying that people need to go to their home country. It's high time, as Africans, as people from Asia, we better our countries so that we don't need to travel to Western countries whereby they return at the port of entry and mistreat us, because that is mistreatment. Because a simple question can easily make you lose millions and millions of dollars of money, because you'll be deported or you'll be asked to return to your country politely.